Welcome to the Brooklyn Rails Wednesday poetry reading series. This is the 138th of these poetry readings, as well as being the 827th example of the new social climbability. This reading has been curated by Sarah Riggs, and it's called Arcs in the Sky, 5 Intercultural Poets, a Rail reading curated by Sarah Riggs. We're going to hear the readers in alphabetical order as we go along. Sara Elkamel, Safaa Fathy, Ghazal Mosadeq, and Nabih. My name's Anselm Berrigan, and Sarah Riggs, of course. And I help work on this series along with Eleanor and Carolyn and Chloe. And I'm just going to say a word or two before we get started, and then I'll turn things over to the readers. If you've not been to one of these readings before, you might pay attention to the chat, as when each reader comes forward, there will be links posted to their various endeavors, publications, and basic bio information. There'll also be some information about the Brooklyn Rail. The June issue of the Rail just went up in the last 5 or 6 days, and there's a terrific poetry section there, so you might take a look at that. And I'm really happy and thrilled that everybody's able to come together from many different places to be here. And thank you, Sarah, for putting this together.
Thanks for the chance.
Sorry, some Joyce Mansour poems have taken over my computer for a second. Let me see here. Okay. Our first reader is Sara Elkamel. She's a poet, journalist, and translator living between Cairo and New York City. She holds an MA in arts journalism from Columbia University and an MFA in poetry from NYU. Her poems have appeared in Poetry Magazine, Ploughshares, the Yale Review, Gulf Coast, the Iowa Review, and Best New Poets, among other places. She is named the winner of Michigan Quarterly Review's 2022 Goldstein Poetry Prize, Tinderbox's Poetry Journal's 2022 Brett Elizabeth Jenkins Poetry Prize, and Redivider's 2021 Blurred Genre Contest. She's the author of the chapbook Field of No Justice, published in 2021 jointly by the African Poetry Book Fund and Akashic Books. Please welcome Sara to the Brooklyn Rail reading.
Hi, everyone. It's so great to be here. Thank you, Sarah, for inviting me. And it's such an honor to be reading alongside you and and Safaa and Ghazal. So here goes. I'm going to read a few poems. The first is called The Sleeper. I'm mostly reading new poems, by the way. So yeah, still in draft stage mostly, which is very nerve-wracking, but also exciting because I'm really stuck with some of them, and hopefully reading them out loud will help me figure things out. Okay, so this is The Sleeper. I am braiding a child's hair when my palms turn gray. When she says, "Why did you stop?" I recognize my voice. I must finish this braid so I can leave, but I don't see a door. The oranges on the trees look and behave like limes. The crow's head is shaved unevenly like an infant's. Dina and I are infants again. Above our bed in the Nile Delta house, God's calls erupt from inside our own ears. Prayer is superior to sleep. The light changes, the lambs grunt, and blowflies form halos around our temples. Even the trees are asleep. I am on trial for living in a house with no plants. They give me the maximum sentence. I am to pick only one action to perform on repeat. In the one room I have never been inside, a body like our grandmother's is sleeping or gone in a sapphire dress and a white veil so long it smothers the bed frame. The wood is the same color as the earth. A door opens in the soil. There is even a bed for me. To wash the spine with soap, the child tilts my stiff body to the left when suddenly I am overcome by thirst. It is the beginning of the hunger season, she says, and turns on a faucet of sand. Her voice is strange, as if given to her. Now I wait for moisture to leave my lips. I have always hated being wet. Okay, so I'm going to follow this dream poem with another dream poem, and this one is called How Most of the Dreams Go, and the title is borrowed from a poem by Ada Limon. How most of the dreams go. The musician leaves me for a woman with no face. He gives her our dark house. A desert balds itself, leaves the scalp as red as amaryllis. The sky is a door with no hinges. I am sure I have the right address. I don't recognize the furniture. My father's voice says, "You don't live here anymore." It is then I suspect a hand around my heart. Well then, where do I live? In the Red Sea's uterus, a sand-eyed kitten drowns. Then kitchen accidents, lime in the blood, paper flowers on graves. No place to put myself. Okay, this third poem is called The Seamstress, and it's dedicated to a friend of mine, an artist, Huda Lutfi. She's a wonderful historian and Egyptian artist. Near the end, there are hands in the wind and wind in the middle. Because she demands it, I pull the end of nothing through the eye of nothing and hand nothing back to her. Hunger distends my tongue. When we were young, we could never escape the bare skin of our mothers. Then strata of fabric cloaked them in the cold. When I finally will say, I don't think it's true, my loneliness is something I designed for myself. I'd like to imagine the wind will run to turn back the skin. In no time, time will eat what's left of the wind. I should have kept secret from the light, the future of my hands. Okay. Thank you so much for bearing with me. I'll just read a couple more poems. I'm kind of checking in the attendance list if my parents are here, because I would rather, yeah, I guess they're not here. They said they would be here. Okay, so this is I guess a prose poem, which is my favorite form to write in. Yeah, it's called Renovation. I am 6 or 7, and my father is saying it is okay for us to spray our palms blue and print them on the walls. In fact, he encourages it. It is a matter of days before the house is repainted the new color of our childhood, a muted salmon, like the inside of something. I punch a seahorse stamp into the same sallow wall until the turquoise ink is dry. Dina and I are racing up and down the narrow corridors, screaming. Briefly, our house is an ocean. My mother is making her thick Friday fries when out of the blue, the oil hisses and soars, leaving a burn on her forearm the shape of a neon tetra. The fish paled until one day it vanished. It was years after my mother left when I saw the fish again, pulsing behind the thinning membrane of my bedroom. When all these walls fade to glass, hundreds of turquoise fish will idle across, the 4 of us among them. It was always the plan. This house will come back as an aquarium. Okay, so I'm going to end with this poem called Lake Arun, which is a lake located in Fayoum in Egypt, which is like a desert oasis. And yeah, so I wrote this poem. It was the first poem I wrote after my MFA. at NYU, and it kind of marks my transition to moving back to Cairo, and but it's not about Cairo, it's about Fayoum. Okay, anyway, this is Lake Arun, and it's dated January 19th, 2022. At the edge of the city, the dead sleep behind green doors the color of God. The fence rises with the hills. Drops of rain in the desert mistake themselves for sand, nick the windshield. It is difficult to tell if the palms, brown, stout, inclined to the earth, are dying or young. The years have salted the lake. I came here to hide from darkness and light, its less honest sister. Excrement lines the shore. A crane wounded in the chest eyes the short-lived crests. I look for green boats in the blinking water. 4 plastic chairs and a stool with frills are all one needs to make a house on the lake. The tea smells of the small fire that brewed it. I move the chairs out of their circle, wipe damp sand off each seat. The hair swathing my face reminds me of the wind. A small table, it must have been carpentered for a child, is turned over. Who turned it over? My sister's eyes have always been sensitive to salt and water. She sutures them shut in every ocean. The day of her wedding, the night dissolved the lake. The dress she chose had 36 satin buttons, each the size of a warbler's eye. It was my job to fasten each eye to its socket. Her back was disappearing as mine, in the mid-May heat, was becoming a lake. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening, and I can't wait to hear the next readers. Safaa, on to you. Over to you.
Sorry.
Yes, I'm muted myself.
Okay. Safaa Fathy was born in Egypt. She's a poet, essay writer, and filmmaker with a PhD from the Sorbonne, and has been director of the program, the International College of Philosophy program in Paris. Her plays Terror and Ordeal were prefaced by Jacques Derrida, with whom she signed a book, Tourner les mots. Her book of poetry, Revolution Goes Through Walls from Split-Level Texts, was first published in Egypt, then in France and in Brazil. Safaa's experimental book of poems entitled Al-Hashish is forthcoming at Palminar Press. I may not have pronounced that right. She also experiments with the visual texture of poems in filmic forms, and her film poem Named to the Sea, structured within a still frame, is being published along with the text in 7 languages. Please welcome Safaa to the Brooklyn Rail reading series.
Well, thank you for the introduction and thank you for the invitation. I am very delighted to be with Aya and Sarah Riggs and Ghazal, of course. So I am a voice among these voices, and as such, I wrote this text in English, and perhaps I will translate it into Arabic sometime, but for the moment it's in English. And it's called Foot in a Cordoba Maze. As I lay on the effable, warty horizon, Margaret was waiting to be buried. As I dodged my entrails for lost love, Ramon writes an apology of his shame to the wrong email address. The hollow mother stares in a space vacuum, where right in the middle lies the limits of any event. Look, beloved, to where the flower is silenced. Implore me forwards, where I did face the police in the multiple uniforms, always hopscotching on one single foot. Entreat me onwards, where I will be not even upright. Here now in Cordoba. What has ceased? 100 years to go, and you never come back. Under the rainy whereabouts of that sky, there is Europe, middle and away. There is Jerusalem, where I did stay, where the coffin dances on mourners' feet, where mothers give birth to fatherless sons, where the Andalus dances on its duende and walks on its mirrors of pouring tears. Donde dije, digo, ahora digo, Diego. Whence you grow, bastards of the sun, bastards of noon? In 1,000 lanes beneath the new moon, disappearing down the solar globes, to whom reverence is due. 40 days of hunger strike, 40 days of a hunger strike, 40 nights of grief. 40 is the number that begets and breathes. Shireen's last road of rain to Jenin cracks into my face to face, coffin to face, shoulders, hands, voices, voiceless face to face, armed occupation. Among silk, Margaret is cashmere, wool, cotton, flore. She awaits animation as love has gone within the planet that dangles around Sagittarius A Astrid. Holds on to the broken bones of Cordoba. Sat next to a mushroom, a gaze of October. As nothing yet lasted for merely that time. The years are yours. I am far too young to be. The clouds that do gather into my ever-vanishing lucidity. Sagittarius A Astrid. What a number, what a nombre they gave me, or gave to that black hole in the middle of our galaxy. Has it been a loaf of bread or a spoonful of honey? Or a plate of seaweeds? Or even pillars that stood there in the color? Infinity has a door and a passage. Little stones spread over an ancient city. A fountain springs here and there. Yet I have a deal, a bond, a clear cry, a candle that I lit every day on the altar of an Osibo. Cast, Ghazal to cast, the hoo-hoo, hoo-hoo, hoo-hoo. Fondre, smelt in one way or another. Here it goes, the missile, or the shell, or the word. Then have a walk, a long walk, 6,000 steps at least to be fit. Reach the Guadalquivir River, then ride to the mosque. Move to where the Maimonite statue sits. Go ahead, turn. Go past the Casa Andalusia. Leave it there. It's writing workshops and nod farewell to the owner you never met. Return back to Alfonso XIII's, to the curdled milk, to the silent outrage, to the field of the mother god, and wait there for your disaster. Just across the Faculty of Law, Business and Economics, as the sounds, resonances, screams, hounds, and whispers in the Magdalena, in the Carmen Caldoso convent in the Plaza Puerta Nueva, young mothers died in childbirth and are still crying. Right there, in front of the Madre de Dios, number 6. It's her field, not her street. It is a campo and a calle before the Madre of Dios even appear. Go to the roof, taste the ochre, watch the bones that fall on the Sahara sand. Bend not until you fail. The loops, the os, the hueso, the hueses, is to say my bones furnishing the ground floating on my cry. The ground bones is of bones. Cordoba is the city of bones. Say it again, repeat. Cordoba is the city of bones. Cordoba is the city of bones. Bones replace bones, built on bones. Bones seal or break, heal or be restored, injured or damaged, appear in the fluorescent light deep inside a line of metal, travels through a pathway, turns around the entrails, crosses the viscera, enters the throat, reaches to the eye, opens the lashes, and lands on your demeanor. Elongated after being shortened, touching the ceiling after being pushed on the stairs, or crawling on the marble steps, wheel to wheel, line after line, foot to foot, here by lies the maze. Ole loud voices, solo, one by one, Raphael Hayes, a barco amargo sailing that ship on the waters of my story that has been living on its own within a nebula of organisms almost hidden from me and from the what has been, the love that has never been. We'll start with the body and the cry, end with the body of silence. It war is loud. Explosions and detonations, rifles, bombs, shells, television, radio, YouTube, in Ukraine, in Jerusalem, in Egyptian prisons, in the streets of Paris. Wars are too loud. The sniper is silent. Only when the sniper's bullet hits behind Shireen, behind the ear, then only hear Shireen though. Bones break in silence. It just snaps within the skin as bullets render the beginning in spite of itself to itself, turns concord into dissonance, and spurs the wood, the tissue, the sacks to envelop the bodies. It has happened, and the roundness is derailing from its acts. The cries reach the ears from cities that has been opened inside out. Cordoba still snakes in its maze, and I, in the middle, don't know the road to Seville. As a campesino errante, a wandering girl from maze to maze, from shore to shore, from river to river, hailing the dog and the fish, the blackbird and the painting. Yes, it is my eyes and my heart, my legs that ran and feet that treaded the pavement and the stones and contemplated the arches and the ochre of the mesquite, stones under the orange flower of the spring that came and left, and I sat by the window staring at the line of the upright hills. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Safaa. Our next reader will be Ghazal Mosadeq. Ghazal is a poet and translator. Writings have been published by Shearsman Books, GAM Press, Tamas, Litmus Press, Firmament, Plumwood Mountain, WD 40 Revista de Poesia, Ensayo y Crítica, Senahoy, Oversound, and Black Box Manifold, among others. It's a hell of a list of names. She is the founder of Pominar Press and is a member of the editorial advisory board for the Journal of British and Irish Innovative Poetry. Please welcome Ghazal to the Rail series.
Thanks, Ansam, and thanks to all organizers and readers and the audience. Great to be here. I'm going to read you parts of a manuscript that has been written from 2018 and to 2020 in Persian. And it didn't have a name, the entire manuscript, but for translation, translator Khashayar Kes Mohammadi and myself decided to call it Andarsname. So take it a working title, which means sort of advisory literature. I start from somewhere in the middle of the manuscript. If only I wasn't stuck so wretchedly, if only I wasn't stuck so wretchedly in between one and all, if only we could write here without interruptions or adjustments. I also wish we weren't this ensnared that all the roads to the inside and outside alike weren't so severed this bad. Without ambiguity and obliqueness, or without asking ourselves if only we could write properly what have we been doing from morning to night, we will surely reveal how empty this box really is. We are building scaffolds to hold water on top of water. It'll destroy itself, mark my words. In the end, our shapely construct of ourselves will destroy itself, the one which we think we've constructed in others' mind, which even if so, would still self-destruct. So now that we haven't, you'll see it'll implode without having ever been constructed. After all, not everything is malleable. I think it'll break one day. And the malleable ones, on the other hand, I think will crinkle terribly. The situation gets so dire that one day one opens one's eyes and observe himself say, whatever there is will be annihilated one day, and whatever has not yet been will slowly grow but its ruins, and blooms into being and repeats. But whatever there was can never again been once. Sometimes one opens one's eye only to see he hasn't aged enough to be an elder, but he's stating the obvious so profoundly and nodding as if it was he who had said it in the first place, and no one else. I myself was lost in my own nebulous thoughts one day, walking to and fro, lost in a fugue, finding jewels in my dreams, holding them in my fist and dragging them to the precipice of reality by my teeth. A man with no arms went to bring water for the horsemen. I stand by my illusions and jibber jabber the same way that nobleman stood by the truth with the same perseverance. A man who was the moon, who was a lion, who was asked only to hold defense that day, who had some relevance to a kind of light, who was the secret, who was the scent of jasmine, who was sent to Euphrates to bring water for children, who was mounted on a horse. Let me say it this way: a moon lion mounted on a horse carrying a water skin lost his hands to the enemies and so kept the water skin in his teeth, never fell off his horse until a spear struck the water skin. With the same perseverance assigned to such saints, I find myself persisting in illusion and jibber jabber. I can't tell if the picture I'm seeing in the magazine is a day shrouded by smog or a facet of a ship wrecked at the hands of the sadistic, turbulent sea, discolored and frantic. When the sea is disturbed, it is indistinguishable from any dust or storm or earthquake. Brown and gray, bleeding into one another. In fact, the entire world of turbulence is brown and gray. In the dust, the thighs of a portly woman are on the ground, entirely stretched out. Two men who are alive possess her body, and a harp is also visible, but nothing else. Has someone died here, perhaps? Should we be mourning? Shouldn't we at least be informed of how such kerfuffle has ensued? Are you two the children of those portly thighs, or just one of you? She is now laid prone. Is she perhaps vomiting from a plank of driftwood onto the sea? Or were you perhaps at home when an earthquake carried you here like this? If pictures were not taken, do you know how transient tragedies such as this would have been? I myself have pricked the tip of my own index finger as I was swimming in the choppy waters of the Black Sea, so exhausted, reaching out for the wooden steps of the jetty, a splinter pierced my hand. It came out on its own, and I survived this predicament. But survivors are stuck in a bind too. One day you should, if they let you in, you definitely should attend an international art auction, observe the faces of the miserable yet fragrant and dapper auctioneers who befriend both the artists and the rich. Just observe that and tell me if life is worth living with such humiliation. I wish one could figure out, or even better, I wish they could figure out all that was our intent, but not all those who are our very enemies, but those who want to help. It would surely be nice if they could know properly what wouldn't be done by now, but it was simply out of our hands. A diver, right there, under the dark, cold water, paddles his feet. I know what he wants. But in the morning, when I see my disheveled face reflected in the mirror, or even scratch that, if anyone sees that reflection, they wouldn't know what they want. And even worse than that are those who, from the moment they open their eyes in the morning, know exactly what they want. And that in itself is a dangerous mental obsession. And I'm not saying I have any goals in my chronic aimlessness. I have goals, but despite my vices, I don't leech off the moments. I'm not guarding the door like a loan shark to settle my debts with this life. I don't want my dues, my inheritance even, but unfortunately, I'm not one of those emancipated ones either to turn up my nose and teach the youth about liberation. I'm mindful. And when it rains, I evade the puddles and suppress the speech as if it were a sudden sneeze. My temples throb as if to implode, and then the throbbing dwindles. Speech and sneezes aside, even the floods eventually die down. If only one could know which one is true and which is false, since we have suppressed 1,000 words like a polite sneeze, or words that are uttered and we regret saying them forever. These words are different from those. Those are words that, if truly possible, they wouldn't be so bad as to make us explode and say all that we should never say. If it rained at the right time, even if it rained a lot, it still wouldn't flood. And now that I list these examples, they seem simple and naive. But if the same was said by an elder, we'd all be impressed and say, how beautifully put. We don't get along with ourselves or our own epoch. We're xenophiles. All of our old poets are strangers. It's only us who exist visibly on these streets. Thanks again to everyone.
Thank you. Thanks. That was fantastic. Our next reader is going to be Aya Nabih. Aya is a translator and writer born in Cairo. She holds a BA in English Language and Literature from Cairo University and an MA in Audiovisual Translation from Hamad bin Khalifa University. She translated Lydia Davis's collected short stories, Varieties of Disturbance, into Arabic, and her poetry collection, Exercises to Develop Insomnia Skills, has been published by Al-Khatab Khan. She was an artist in residence in Marrakesh, Casablanca, New York, as part of a dance and poetry residency organized by Tamas. She is currently working on a new collection, Map of Time. She writes in Arabic and will be reading poems translated by Sara Elkamel. Please welcome Aya to the Rail series.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'll be reading poems from Cold Place. I'll read in Arabic, then followed by English. المكان باص مدينة واحد. لم أدرك أن أنفي كان ملتصقا بزجاج نافذة الحافلة إلا بعد فرملة السائق المفاجئة. اعتدلت برأسي إلى الوراء أثناء توقفها، وللحظة انفصلت عن محيطي. قلت خلالها أني ربما لست مركز أحداث الآخرين، لكني كذلك بالنسبة إلى نفسي. قلت أن أحدا لن يأتي لنجدتي ولا أعرف نجدتي من ماذا تحديدا. الحافلة تندفع والجبال تمر على جانبي بسرعة لا تسمح لي أن أميز أشكالها. ضحكت لسذاجتي حين ظننت أني لمحت نفسي أقف على الطريق عندما اختلط أصفر الجبال بالرمادي الذي كنت أرتديه بالفعل، وحاولت طرد الفكرة، لكني بحركة تلقائية التفت ورائي لأتأكد إن كانت هي أنا من فاتتها الحافلة. City 1 bus. It wasn't until after the driver's sudden brake that I realized my nose had been pressed against the glass. As the bus stood still, I leaned my head back, and for a moment I disengaged from my surroundings. Maybe I'm at the center of no one else's life, I told myself, but I'm at the center of mine. No one is coming to rescue me, I thought, though I don't know exactly from what. The bus rushes ahead, and the mountains gallop too furiously for me to make out any of their shapes. I spot a gray mass among the yellow blur of the mountains, and because today I too am dressed in gray, I mistake it for myself, standing by the side of the road. My naivety never fails to amuse me. I tried to dismiss the idea, but impulsively, I pressed my palms against the glass and looked back to check if it was I who had just missed the bus. مطار. أحترس أثناء السير. آخذ حقيبتي ونفسي إلى المطار. مبدئياً أنا وخريطة رحلتي واحد. Airport. I take caution as I walk. I take my suitcase and myself to the airport. My journey's map and myself are one and the same. شاطئ مدينة 2. المنطقة الحرة، ميناء الصيد، ممنوع التقاط الصور ورمي الأزبال والصيد. وماذا عن الغرق؟ أغرق في كل ما أفعل، وكما يحدث في النوم والمشي والكلام والسكوت، أغرق في أسماك فضية جاءت في رحلتها الأخيرة مع موجة إلى الشاطئ ولم تعد إلى البحر. انتهت حياتها عند صخرة حفرت على سطحها قبور تناسب أحجامها، كأنها قوالب تكونت خصيصا لكل منها مع تكون الصخرة. الأسماك الأخرى التي عادت مع تلك الموجة لم تدرك على الأرجح أنها فقدت أفرادا من مجموعتها. الأسماك متشابهة وعددها الكبير لا يسمح لأفرادها بملاحظة اختفاء البعض، وأفترض أن الحياة تحت الماء صعبة وكل سمكة منشغلة بحالها. أتمشى على الشاطئ لأجمع بعض الأصداف وأضعها أمام الصخرة. هكذا تزار قبور الشواطئ، لكني أغرق في الطريق إليها. City 2, beach. Free zone, fishing port. Photography is forbidden. Disposal of waste is forbidden, and so is fishing. And what of drowning? I drown in everything I do. As with sleeping, walking, speaking, and staying silent, I drown too in the small silver fish that had arrived on their last journey aboard a wave. Their lives ended on a beach rock, carved with graves the same size as the fish. It's as if their graves were molded with the cementation of the rock. The fish that didn't return with the back shoal probably never noticed that the shoal had lost some of its members. Fish look alike, and their sheer number doesn't permit a single individual to notice the disappearance of some. Plus, I reckon that life underwater is rough, and that every fish is preoccupied with its own life. I take a walk on the shore to collect stray shells, which I place by the rock. This is how one visits a graveyard on the shore. All the same, I drown on my way to them. مطار. مهارات جديدة أكتسبها. فهذه المرة أنجح في حزم كل أغراضي في حقيبة واحدة بدلاً من 2. الآن لدي حقيبة واحدة ثقيلة جداً ويستحيل حملها. Airport. I'm picking up new skills. This time, I have managed to pack all my belongings into one single suitcase, instead of the usual 2. Now I have one suitcase, extremely heavy, impossible to lift. باص مدينة 1. ما أربكني أني لم أكن أعرف اسم محطتي أو كم من الوقت تبقى على نزولي، ولأن الباص كان ينطلق مناورا ما حوله متسلحا بإضاءة صفراء تكسر السواد، قرر أحد الركاب التماهي مع المشهد مقترحا أننا في طائرة بدون طيار، وصدقناه لمجرد أن أحدنا لم يستطع أن يرى السائق من مكانه. ما أربكني حقا أني لم أكن أعرف اسم محطتي أو كم من الوقت تبقى على نزولي، لا زجاج النوافذ الذي يرتج بعصبية، ولا تلك الكآبة الخفية التي تلفح وجهي كلما أعاد الطريق نفسه أو هم أحدهم بالنزول. City 1, bus. What disoriented me was that I didn't know the name of my station, nor how much longer it would be before I disembarked. And because the bus had been sneaking through traffic, armed with the yellow lights that cleaved the darkness, one of the passengers decided to rewrite the scene, suggesting that we were on an unpiloted plane. And we believed him, for none of us could make out the driver from our seats. What truly disoriented me was that I didn't know the name of my station, nor how much longer it would be before I disembarked, not the glass windows that shivered compulsively, nor the despair that plagued my face every time the road reproduced itself, or someone got up to leave. مطار. الباسبور والتذكرة بوابة دي. الاحتمالات لا نهائية. يمكنني أن أعيش حياة شخص آخر، أن أكون أي شيء. البحث عن الذات لعبة قديمة مستهلكة، تصلح للعرض في سوق المستعمل. الجديد هو البحث عن الموطن الأصلي. موطني الأصلي في غابة، والأشجار تخفي الغابة. Airport. Your ticket and passport. Gate D. The possibilities are endless. I could become anybody else. Looking for oneself is an old time-worn game, suitable for display at a flea market. What is innovative is the search for your true home, your natural habitat. My true home is in a forest, where the trees conceal the forest. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final reader today, also the curator of this reading, will be Sara Riggs. Sara is the author of 7 books of poetry in English, including The Nerve Epistle and Palm and Granite, which won a 1913 Poetry Prize. She's also the author of the essay collection Word Sightings, Poetry and Visual Media in Stevens, Bishop, and O'Hara. She has translated 7 books of contemporary French poetry into English, including most recently Etel Adnan's Time, Nightboat 2019, recipient of the Griffin International Poetry Prize and the Best Translated Book Award in 2020. She's also a filmmaker, artist, and host of the podcast Invitation to the Species. She lives in Brooklyn with her husband, Omar Barada, with whom she has co-edited Another Room to Live in, 15 Contemporary Arab Poets in Translation, which is forthcoming. Please welcome Sarah Riggs to the Rail series.
Thank you so much, Anselm and Carolyn, Chloe, everybody who made the reading happen on the nitty-gritty level. And a big shout out to Fong Bui for these 800 plus events through Brooklyn Rail. It's really an amazing project, and it's amazing to behold and occasionally pop in and be part of. And thank you to Aya and Safaa, Sarah and Ghazal for your amazing work. It's so powerful, and it's just an exciting thing to get to be together in this place. And I'm so glad that it will be online for people to reference in the years to come. So I'm going to just read from a couple things that are from my manuscript, Neptune Avenue. The first one is a Morocco journal. Return to Tangier. Rooftops, gulls laughing, a band of musicians in the street, maybe a wedding, a turtle's foot on my toe. People have stripped off their masks or never had them. If you don't like the wind, leave this town, says Safira. Muse or music, a numbing together, further inland some arguments. What was it you meant to hear? 1,000 birds raining down, an occult dream or memory, you were with them, they are with you. You recording the love. Now comes the call to prayer, the voices in simultaneous surround. Language is magic, you say, feeling the registers in your gut, the sun coming down in stripes. Tangier impressions continued. A poet staring into mirrors of varying sizes, Sara Elkamel. Poems are hands and feet, eyes, lost eyes, Safaa Fathy. I had sent you my eyes by WhatsApp. 2 seagulls perched on that roof, a smothering of engines for a moment. We were keen to hear each other's breath, voices at play caught in the wind a bit. Civilizations fall in the whispers. Her hair is different from mine, says the 2-year-old girl. I am a lion, I say, and growl and make fists. She becomes a lion too, naked with little feet. The fans open and close. You were a little device, and I a severed head. Quickly diminishing on a line, hair and mouth, palms of hands, says Safaa, and loneliness of hearts. Our hands were reading material for each other, you in line with an I had borrowed once. A sleeve or misnomer, several magpies, female, back in Paris in a garden, making noises, inferring, disagreeing. Some spread eye, a hand hanging by a necklace. And here again, is it calming, alarming? The call to prayer. All male voices, the differences, routine voices fresh each time. A marvel or refreshment, mellifluous fractions of attention gathered around for company. Where was the Arabic at breakfast? Tonally deaf in the decaf. What were the characters, the numbers again? A colonial pathology, circumvented by a hum. You too, said the conscience, along with the other selves, this one in Tangier. To restore yourself into a whole toe or tree, locate that one there. We were made of each other, drinking the citron nut and the pearl in her mouth. Tangier still. She dreams the remorse, a huge box of madeleines for my father, nostalgia in quantity. She had gathered his attention. And Cole would dip in every now and again, asking after wild animals or some kind of abandoned spoon, weaving through dreams. There were 11 of them, pulling the stone away by numbers, not beauty in numbers. A sly deterioration of the focus on women and beauty, blinding the beast to get at this equilibrium. And then when I first met Aya, it was with Omar Barada. And at that time, Omar and I were working on translations of poems from the 1001 Nights. And I have done a sequence called She Hybrids. And this is the one with lines interspersed from the 1001 Nights. Translation, Omar and myself, with my own lines. With the 1001 Nights. With night 256. She appears, and with what intensity, a moon, she sways under the movement of the unknown, a willow branch telling the tales of leaves. Her scent, ambergris, a long attention, her gaze, a gazelle's, mockingly altered. Sorrow, it seems, and she would tell it, bores my heart. And so we fall into lines. The moment she leaves with bated breath, it loves to return. A she waited time. Her gazing the moon recalled, a trip returned under second. To me are nights, several and unfolding, in al rahmatain. Dearly, each of us holds a moon, gathered concretely in a curve. I with her eyes, that of she, and she with mine, hers, she, and so on. With night 791, your figure bewildering, your gaze blackest black, as in one of the myriad poems. Your face, a glimmering stream, writing on the backs of eyelids, a billowy script, a heavenly image imprinted on my eye. So much said there in the skies could imprint. Hyacinth, a third gemstone. She was partial to fractional love in time. 1/5 musk, a 6th ambergris. So it was said or sung or held out toward the ends. You, a pearl, yet more luminous. She had a half mind, half body, to let go of the gem metaphors. Eve never conceived one so beautiful. Eve has not aged out, is still relevant. You've no equal in the gardens above. Stop looking for equivalences. Torment if your passions will. Okay, she is understanding this intensity. Forgive me, it's your choice, lingering there in an eros of indecision. You're longed for, the world's ornament, the affirmation, the assurance of you. Not fire your face. And the last I'll read with night 786. The girl appears lively. Here is a word that reminds you words are alive. Her cheeks bright in the sun, a glow coming from those texts. Let's not try to capture, let it be. She came in a green gown, green. You can still see her approaching, like the branch hiding the pomegranate. Have you ever counted how many seeds are behind there? I asked for her garment's name, the Eros in translation. And she wryly responded, words in a pitch of voyaging centuries. To pierce the beloved's inmost heart, perhaps with a writing instrument, freeze a scent piercing to bitterness, a scent. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And thank you, Safaa and Aya and Ghazal and Sara E. And thanks everybody for coming. Maybe now we'll do the thing where we throw the mic open and let everybody say hello and goodbye. If you're in the Northeast United States, don't go outside. Yellow.
Thank
Otherwise,
you.
great to see
That
you.
was amazing.
Everyone.
Thank you
Thank you.
so
Thank
much.
you.
Your reading.
Wonderful.
That was so beautiful.
Great. Thank
So
you.
inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you.
Merci.
Wonderful.
Have a
Salut,
lovely
Norma.
day around the world.
Hi, Norma.
Hi, Norma.